Hey guys, this is Loyota review and going over the season 14 tank items. There's actually a decent amount of changes, especially in the stats. So let's get into it. So I have my lovely list. This is also my notes, which I am definitely going to keep on there. And then we have this here. So where I'm going to start with this is the MR items. So we're gonna cover all of these. Oh, so this is like attached for a specific reason, but let's go over them real quick. So we have the Abyssal Mask, 2400, didn't change at all. It's still a very reasonable item to get, especially if you're playing things like Zac, right? Because naturally, you're gonna get a good amount of HP. You get the magic resist, you reduce theirs. Like it's pretty good, and it's a cheap item. Next up, they have. I don't really want to do like the brand new ones. This also had no changes. Spirit Visage, same item through and through. Um, it's probably still not going to really be built at all. I mean, Grievous Wounds will still affect all these things, so it's probably going to remain the same. Um, and then they have a couple new options. So let's get out the notes and let's get into it. We have okay, so we have Fawn. I guess I'm going to do Fawn first. So I'm going to show it in a second. Here it is. The main difference with Fawn at this point is that so it loses 5 MR. It goes from 10 stacks to 8 stacks. Now, there's also a difference in that prior you would have uh, magic damage, any sorts of magic damage, and if you got immobilized, it would add 2 stacks. So there was multiple ways to actually get it up. Um, but the actual enhancement was like not as strong. It was only 30 MR. This is 70 MR, which is a ton, right? Uh, but the thing is, it was nice the fact that certain immobilization spells would actually cause you to get more stacks. Because this is only magic, so yeah, it's like definitely more dialed into like what it was before. As you remember when you're playing against like Cassio, Corky, Rise, whatever, you would build this and then like you'd be kind of good to go. So this is more in essence into what it is, except they're not making it like a flat magic damage reduction. It's more just adding a ton more MR. So not half bad. Uh, Another item that they're adding is the Hollow Radiance. Now this one is interesting because here it is. So it's a little under 100% gold efficiency. Um, it's basically the MR version of Sunfire. Um, Obviously these two items don't stack together. You do one or the other. But what's interesting about it is just the fact that, yeah, you if you're against like Gwen and you need wave clear, and as was a huge issue you always had, like if I'm playing Shen into Gwen and let's say I wanted to build MR, I just don't have any wave clear. And so even though like, yeah, I could build MR and fight her, she could just also push the wave and then nothing happens. This actually lets you push the wave and fight. It's a lot of HP, decent MR. Um, it has the increased damage to minions, which is amazing. And if you actually kill a minion with it, then it does like kind of like the Tristana like explosion damage. Also amazing. So this is a rather good item, to be honest. Especially for, like I said, tanks playing into certain MR picks or AP picks. The next, I think there was one more. So there's also this one here. It's called Canic Rukrin. Rukrin, something like that. Where do I have it? Right here. So this is actually, unlike this item, it's actually just above 100% gold efficiency, which is already amazing, by the way. Like, again, whenever you're at least 100% gold efficiency, buying the item as is like decent. Now, it has a ton of MR, which is great. Good HP, decent HP regen. But more specifically, when you're out of combat after 12 seconds, and a shield, from as far as I know, does not disappear, you just get a flat magic shield. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier, in that, like just before this time, like you have this item to have wave clear into certain picks. This item is just straight up for just like dealing with AP damage. And there's no ramp up. You just kind of go straight into the fight and you have it. And of course, if you compare it to this item, it's like, okay, so I'm getting 25 more MR straight up. I have a 550 magic shield, which also, okay, I'm pretty sure I remember that shielding does include your resistance. I actually don't remember now, to be honest. I really should remember, but I'm not gonna try to look it up right now. Uh, but regardless, you get a nice fat shield to go along with this, which is what does it tell me? 20% of your health. Okay, so not bad. More health you build, bigger the shield, right? So this makes this item particularly good. And honestly, when I'm looking at my tier list, if I'm putting this here still at the B tier because just a flat out good item. It's not OP by any means. It's just a flat out good item. Spirit Visage is still in a C tier. It's still like you're not really gonna be building this item like almost ever, which kind of sucks. The Spell Shield item, is actually S tier for magic resist. Why? Because there's no ramp. I personally I love the fact that the item does not have to have ramp. Um and so you'll get all the value right away. That is amazing. Fawn is very much staying here in situational. Like it is going back to what it was before. Prior, they tried to make Fawn kind of like you just build it as your main MR item, and it didn't really work out. So now they kind of made it more specific. So now it's in situational. That's not bad. And then finally, what was it? It's let me try to have it right. So it's Hollow Radiance. This is A tier. It is a great item. Great MR item, especially if you don't want to go into Sunfire and like you could do this as your Sunfire option as your like AoE option, and then you can grab like just more armor. So that's great. Next up, we'll go into the mana items. That'll be easy. So there's no changes to Winter's Approach. And that's like fine. The item wasn't really built much. This changed quite a bit. Frozen Heart, where is it? So it's 400 gold less. That's massive. Okay, but it's like you're thinking, okay, 400 gold less. What is actually being changed about it? Also, let me just quickly look up, make sure I'm not. Dude, I hope I'm not. Okay, I'm right. Okay, I just wanted to double check to make sure I wasn't getting the mana, the mana changes, right or wrong. So it's same mana. It is, where is it? It loses 20 armor. Okay, so that's like kind of like where you're losing some of the value. You're losing 20 armor, but it still reduces the attack speed by 20%. And that's, I mean, the main reason you're basically building Frozen Heart is because you wanted mana, you wanted some armor, and you wanted to reduce their attack speed. That's insane. And the fact that it's so cheap, it's literally cheaper than Winter's Approach while giving giving this, it makes this item obsolete. Even though it has like that shielding, if you're having mana issues or anything like that, you're gonna build Frozen Heart like every single time over this item. And so because of that, this item becomes an S tier. It's a flat out amazing item. You're a tank and you're playing against Fiora, you're playing against Jax, these kinds of picks. This is an insane item, especially at the price. It kind of makes like Winter, like Winter's Approach, horrible, just completely worthless, and that kind of sucks. That definitely sucks. And they're probably gonna have to figure out something to do with this item, and maybe change the effect or whatever. But for now, this item sucks. Next up, we have these two MS items. So it's Trailblazer and Deadman's. And I'll go over Deadman's first because it's going to be a little bit easier. So if I go to Deadman's, so this item doesn't slow anymore. It doesn't slow anymore. It's the same price. Stats didn't change. But what's a little different now for this item is that you gain the like basically like Swifties with this item. Like the fact that movement slowing effects are reduced, like the duration is reduced on you, the strength of it, that's insane. Like already, the most common picks that took this was Garen and Darius, right? So champs that took this for that very reason now get even more benefit from it. So it actually makes Deadman's, and it's still like for an average tank, it's pretty worthless, which is why it's going into the C tier. But I'm just gonna say, as a bruiser, it's a rather good item. As a tank, not so much. But what they do with the tank version is they actually have a thing called Trailblazer. It's only 2,400 gold. Stats are decent, not an insane amount of HP, not an insane amount of armor. You get some movement speed, which is kind of rare for a tank to actually have movement speed built into their kit. And then when you have it, you get upwards to a flat 20%, 20 bonus movement speed. I did the testing, and it takes about 4 seconds to do this. Here, it's right here. It takes about 4 seconds to do this. What's interesting, so I'm going to show it here. So look, it's going to actually build. So look, it builds up, and it leaves this like trail, and this trail increases your teammates' movement speed by 15%. Okay, and then when you hit them, then it does like a little bit of damage. It's not like that insane or anything like that. But every 4 seconds, you basically can get a damage proc, assuming you're actually moving around, which is decent. It slows them for 50%, which is actually pretty considerable and rather annoying. And then it also kind of makes IBG less important to get as a tank if you're grabbing this, which is actually something I didn't really think about when I was initially making these tier lists. But like Deadman's, we go here. This item, where the hell is it? Trailblazers, is actually an A tier. Maybe it's S tier. I'm not 100% sure yet, but it's definitely up there because it's cheap, decent stats. And as you can imagine, if you have that equipped, your teammates are like, oh shit, we're losing the fight, we gotta retreat. Your teammates can actually catch up. Oh, we're gonna push ahead and I'm way ahead as a tank. Your teammates can follow real quick. That's interesting. As a Malphite, if you ulti, this is gonna leave a trail, I think. I would have to test it. But it's pretty good. It's definitely pretty good. Next up, we have these HP items. We have Heartsteel and we have Warmogs and we have Chains. Chains didn't change at all. It's the same thing as before. Yeah, there's no change. It's just gonna be slotted in the B tier. No surprise, it's just a B tier item. Heartsteel and Warmogs did change, just ever so slightly. So Warmogs, it's minus 50 HP, so it's 800 to 750. Pretty sure you gained 5% movement speed, right? Yeah, so you gain 5% movement speed. It costs a little bit more. You don't get ability haste. It's not bad. I mean, again, most of the time you're going to build Warmogs just for the passive in the end. So it's still serving the same purpose, just so you get a little bit more movement speed to kind of get out of combat and such. For Heartsteel, I did the math. So it's 200 gold less, naturally, right? It's not a mythic. It doesn't have ability haste anymore, which, I mean, that kind of sucks in some ways, because when you first build it, and having 20 ability haste on top of all this other stuff was pretty insane. But what I found from this is that I did a little math. So let's say you're at 2k HP, which means you rush the item first time, because you're gonna rush this item anyways if you build it, because you want the procs and the stacking. At level 8, 2k HP, you're gaining 2 less max health per proc. So it was 24 to 22. Not going to be significant long term, but it's still interesting to note. More importantly is that you go from 245 damage to 180, and that is significant. And it will the gap will close a bit later on. But the fact that you're doing less damage to time and you're not getting 20 ability haste actually kind of makes the item not great. This goes into a C tier for me. That's not great. And then Warmogs, it's pretty much situational still. Really no change with that. And then I'm going to toss in Sunfire, because Sunfire, it's kind of annoying. So for Sunfire, the main change they did is that there's no more increased damage to minions, which does suck. It is still your AoE clearing armor item. So even though it's a tad worse than before, it's still kind of an A tier item. Of course, I'm gonna put it on A tier for now. It could be B tier too, but I'm gonna put it for A tier for now. Mostly because I had the discussion idea of like, what if you get the MR item first with these like other like armor items? But again, like you better have the right setup to do that. Um, but I kind of like this with one of these, to be honest. But I'll put it here for now. Next up, let's just clear out the rest of the armor items, right? Thornmail is completely unchanged, so it's still an A tier. Like it still gives good stats, does its job. I like it, right? Gives decent HP. IBG, obviously this changed quite a bit. It went from, where is it? It's just one of the first items I did. Oh, here we go. So it's 300 gold less, but you lose 200 HP and you lose 5 ability haste, and the effect is still the same. I'm not exactly happy about that. It's like, I guess I'll put it in a B tier, but it's not great. I'll just leave it at that. Like I'm not rushing this item. Let's say that. I'm definitely not rushing Iceborne Gauntlet as a tank. Maybe you might want to grab it later on, but then of course you go into Trailblazer, which is going to do the same thing, except it's cheaper and it gives almost similar stats. Yeah, you don't get ability haste, but it also has a little bit more interesting effect. I don't know. Part of me thinks this is probably just a better item to IBG, which of course that's why it also is ranked higher on this. And this might even be like here in a way as a tank, because like again, if I'm a tank and I'm looking to build this over this, then I'm gonna just pick up a different armor item instead of this. I'm not gonna pick this up over Thornmail or Randuin's or whatever. Next up, we have Randuin's. I think this was mostly unchanged. Yeah, so you just lost 5 armor, and then the rest of it's the same. Actually, that's not true. You gain 5% more critical strike like damage, like reflection, or like reduction, sorry. Which makes it pretty good. And of course, you know, I also didn't tell this about like Frozen Heart, but Frozen Heart also lost. Oh shit, it didn't. Oh man, dude, I didn't scroll all the way down, but the fact that it still has Rock Solid, because I thought it lost Rock Solid. The fact that it has Rock Solid makes Frozen Heart definitively the best, probably the best tank item in the game. Wow. Not only is it the best tank item in the game, it also is so good that 100% you're gonna see non-tanks build this item. Because I didn't realize, I only saw this part. I didn't scroll down all the way. The fact that it still has this, holy shit, that's crazy. But random ones would be slotted here, and at least I think it'd be. I'm gonna put it here. It is definitely like both these like items are like the go-to like tank items, like armor items. Especially if you like you don't have to go Grievous Wounds. Like these are definitely like the go-to items. Uh, man, that's crazy. I can't believe I didn't catch that. And then we have, I guess we do Jock Show. So Jock Show, you know, it's all the way down here. So you gain more base like MR armor from it. You lose the ability haste again, so like less ability haste is like built into these kits, which again it kind of makes Frozen Heart even better. And maybe that's like a case where like you would look at IBG maybe because it has 15 ability haste, but I prefer not having to tech into that as much. But now the effect is after 5 seconds you just gain 30% more armor and MR, and since Gargoyle Stoneplate is gone, where like you don't just get like this increased like Stoneplate was basically our version of decap as tanks. So now this is like the new like version of decap for tanks, and so it's naturally gonna be an S tier. Actually, do I put on S tier? It's rather good though. It's between these two. I might slot it here anyways because I can see a world where like I'm just gonna grab it anyways because I just want the like the stats, especially if like I can afford it. But you're definitely gonna get a singular MR, a singular armor item, and then you might tech into it after all that. Like Orin's gonna absolutely love this item. Like before, Orin didn't really. He sometimes went this item, but the vamp was like pretty useless. So I think I'm gonna leave it here for now. Part of me wants to bring this down a notch, and this might look a little bit better. And then even part of me feels like bringing Sunfire down a notch, because it's like part of me feels like it might go this way. But again, it's not gonna be perfect. I'm guessing how all these items are gonna like rank up in the end. Uh, but like I said, I really do like Hollow Radiance. What am I missing? So Titanic, this is just going to be in situational. I threw it in here just because, like, obviously it's on this list, and as a tank, there's going to be a few tanks who can actually go it, like Scion. Uh, this here is a number armor item, so it's called Unending Despair. It is. What did I say it was? Did I actually say what it was? So I think it's like 84, 85% gold efficiency, which is not great. So obviously, as an early game item, this is terrible. When you build it later on, as you could tell, for instance, I have, okay, like, let's make this a little bit more reasonable. Let's do something like this, right? So if I build this later on, it's a 60, deals 60 damage. And of course, you have to be in combat for 7 seconds. And it's every 7 seconds. And it's just like, for one, having to wait 7 seconds for this to proc in the first place kind of blows. And the fact that it's not like, oh, every 2 seconds afterwards it keeps procking, it's just every 7 seconds. But if it does actually proc multiple times on multiple champions, for instance, if it was on, like, let's say, I don't know, you hit 3 champions with this. And so each time, like, it hits a champion, it's only doing 60 damage, right? But it's 180 damage total. And so for like 60 times 2.5, that is what? 150. So it's 450 heal. That's insane. The heal is absolutely insane if it actually goes off. But again, that's 7 seconds. It kind of makes the new item shit. It actually kind of makes the new item pretty bad, which is rather sad. But it does have ability haste, I guess. And then we have the 2 support items. We have Locket and Knight's Vow. Now, this is pretty interesting because Knight's Vow actually gained 20 armor. That is kind of amazing. And naturally, if you're playing a tank and you want to support your core carry, this is a pretty damn good item. Actually, like, look, comparing this to this, look at this. This has 300 HP, so 100 more HP than IVG. Has almost similar armor, similar ability haste. It's pretty damn good. So this becomes like B or almost A tier as like just like an additional armor item, and it's rather good. It's pretty amazing. And then like Locket, it's, I think I put down, it's like basically the same thing. You lose 10 ability haste, so it's just a flat out nerf. So it's like a C. Also, I just realized in this tier list I don't have Zeke's, which is kind of, I can't believe I didn't have that. Hold on. I'm gonna fix this real quick. Give me a second. Zeke's. Where the hell are you? There you are. Okay. So Zeke's. What did I say for this? So you lose 15 ability. No, that's not ability haste. Armor. So you lose 15 armor and gain 5 ability haste. And now it's like it's more pushing into like it being a self-casting ulti that you get like this slow field around you, and it's not bad. I mean, it's honestly not bad. Is it worth building over some of these other items? Probably not, and probably pushes it around this tier as well. I think that's pretty much everything because all these like basically remain the same. Yeah, so overall for this tier list, Frozen Heart is the clear winner. I absolutely love this item now, and it's probably an item that everyone's gonna love the entire time. Also, I need to make sure I get rid of minions so the game does not end. So Frozen Heart's amazing. Show again, it's like your kind of your replacement to Stoneplate in terms of being your scaling armor MR item. So as a tank, you're gonna pick this up later on, no matter what, probably. Especially if I mean if you have the gold. Obviously, sometimes tanks go down in gold, which may make this an A tier, but for now it'll be here. And then of course I love this item as well. You know, I just the fact that you get this magic shield going into the fight and it's such good base stats to just pick up later on, especially if you need to just deal with like an AP item that's only hitting you a couple times. Amazing, right? Um, then of course we have the Sunfire version of the Magic Resist, really great. We have like the tanks version of Deadman's, which has a lot of applications. Thornmail and Randuin's are kind of the same as they were before, but that makes the fact that like certain other items got nerfed makes these items actually better. Abyssal Mask, same, no issues. Chains, it's still a good item to pick up, especially in singular um threat like operations. Sunfire, it's only in B tier because it's the only armor item that like really gives you like what you want for like AoE clear. And then of course now Knight's Vow is a B tier versus like a C or D tier because it's actually a little bit more geared towards true tanks, not just like melee supports. Spirit Visage, like I said, there's better MR items than this, so it still hasn't really improved. Deadman's not really a tank item. This is the tank item. Heartsteel, I don't like the nerfs to it. I don't like the nerfs to IBG either, which is why I'm not really too fond of it. Like Locket is not necessarily. I mean, you can build it as a tank and it's fine. There's like no issues on having like that extra shield with everyone else. And that honestly, this could like I could change this from C tier to even situational. And Zeke's, honestly, I'll put it here. I'm gonna move it to D tier because I think as a tank, you're probably never gonna give a shit about building this item, like ever. Like the only ways I can imagine is just like yeah, like I'm a Scion ulting in, I hit R and then I have a slow field around me, and that actually is like useful. But like for the most part, like an Ornn, a Scion, whatever, having that doesn't really matter. The what was this item? This is like pretty useless. The fact because it's 7 seconds and every 7 seconds it's rather useless. And then Fimbulwinter is rather useless. And of course, then we have these items have been situational for the most part all the time. So I think that's how I'm gonna wrap up the tank item tier list. And I should be covering the bruiser tier list next. Thanks for watching.